Welcome to Champagne Problems Podcast. I am your host, Robbie Shaw. Join us as we explore mental and emotional well-being, physical optimization, and the journey to discovering your highest self. Champagne Problems is brought to you in proud partnership with Bond Buzz, the alcohol-free social spirit. Ben Ellsworth, welcome to Champagne Problems down at the Food and Wine Classic in Charleston.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Robbie.
Rolled off the tongue. Thank you for being here, man. I appreciate you doing this.
Yeah, no problem.
So start off a little with some rapid fire that I like to try to get to know my guests doing. And the first one is, what is your first live music experience and where?
Well, I'm going to have the shittiest answer you've
Oh,
ever
come
heard.
on. The shittiest are the best.
Milli Vanilli.
Yes. Yes, dude. That's not shitty.
You want to know how I wound up there?
Absolutely.
A buddy of mine that I was growing up with, his father was a radio personality. And so he would go to these concerts for the ticket winners and issue them out. And we would get the crappy ones that he didn't want to attend. So we gave the ticket winners their tickets and we went and saw Milli Vanilli. Strangest thing, I could not tell that they were lip syncing.
Oh, right. Well, they were pretty good at it, apparently. That's funny. I just started watching the, what's the new show on the Menendez brothers, whatever show, about the two guys that killed their parents. And the entire show, it's like the soundtrack is Milli Vanilli.
Yeah.
It's really weird.
My fiance probably knows that one, but
Yeah,
I don't watch
yeah.
a lot of TV.
Yeah. And then let's see. Do you read?
I read a lot.
What are you currently reading in book form?
Book called Wired for Love. Mm-hmm. So I'm about to get married, so I'm trying to figure it out.
Yeah. Well, good luck there, pal. Me too. 18 years in, still trying to figure it. Let's see. What's your favorite smell?
Favorite smell? God, I don't want to sound cliche, but I think it's bacon.
That's not cliche.
Or unoriginal.
That's
but
fantastic.
yeah.
Little Benton's bacon, maybe?
Yeah.
Least favorite smell?
Shit.
Yes. From any animal, any living thing. I get it. That's phenomenal. All right, last one. If you could know the answer to any question, what would you ask?
Why?
Just plain and simple.
I just would like to see what the all-knowing would fire back.
That's right. Yeah. That's good. All right. Well, let's dive in a little bit. So, you're sober, right? And
Yes.
and you're open about that. I mean,
Yep.
I did a little research there. I wouldn't have just said that if you weren't, or there was a risk of it. If you don't mind, a little bit of the journey. You know, what led you to the other side?
Vodka
Yeah, it'll do it, right?
and lots of it.
Blue Label, huh?
So, no, Papoff. It started out fancy, but yeah, it ended pretty bad. But I mean, you know, I got into the hospitality industry, food and beverage. Beverage was half my job, and I lived up to it. I got in there because that's where the party was. I wish I could tell you I had a grandmother that inspired me, but I just went because I didn't have a plan, and they would take me. And I did pretty well in the industry. I mean, I worked my way up from prep cook to line cook to running $6 million restaurant. And what it looked like was I would show up for work and I would go up to my office, I'd do a line of cocaine, and I'd take a pull off a bourbon bottle. I'd go down and sit with the president of the company and the vice president, and they'd look at the numbers, and they'd say, "Ben, this looks great. Keep doing what you're doing."
You got it.
And I'd go right back up to that office and do another line and have another pull, and I was miserable, but I had that job, so I didn't have a problem.
Yeah.
Like, the rest of my life was burning to the ground, but I think that paycheck is what kept me going for so long. And then finally, I just had a breaking point. I had a really close friend die an alcoholic death. And I was in and out of the hospital for 2 weeks watching it happen. That was a big wake-up call. that last week before I got sober, I would always befriend like the middle-aged dude at the bar, you know, that no one really hung out with, but he was always there. And I was looking around for that guy like that last week, and I didn't see him. And I had this moment of clarity where I was like, shit, it's me. And then like shortly after, you know, my good buddy's death, I hit this breaking point, and I was like, I had this great idea. I was like, tomorrow you're going to wake up, you're going to take your car to CarMax, you're going to get a check for $1,800, you're going to buy a plane ticket to Costa Rica, and you're going to disappear. Leave the job, leave the house, leave the kids. And that was it. That was the best thing that I could come up with. And I woke up the next morning, and, you know, I don't want to sound kooky, but like I heard a voice. And it was like, you need to go get your children. At that time, I only had them for a couple days for visitation. And I never drank around them. I would do other things, you know, but I was always too terrified that I'd black out and something terrible would happen. So I got the kids, and I kind of went through detox at home, which was completely stupid. But I made it, and once I took the kids back, I'd taken a leave off work, and I wandered into recovery. And I'd wandered into recovery 2 years prior, but wasn't ready to do anything about it. I was just kind of trying to get back into the house with my daughter's mother, and, you know, I wasn't doing it for me. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Good for you, man. Congrats.
Yeah, it was huge. I mean, I was full throttle from 16 to 30, 38 years old.
You know, I heard you say, you know, you gravitated towards the industry, the food and beverage industry, because you knew they would accept you. And you hear that a lot.
Yeah.
You know, it's, you know, for lack of better terms, the misfits, the people that, you know, don't have anywhere else to belong or don't have a path. And obviously that's not 100%, that's a general statement, but you do hear that a lot.
Yeah.
And it is the welcoming family. It's the, come on in here, man. You know, we're all partying.
Yeah.
You know, and we can bond and we can all relate, and that's great in a sense, but you do often hear that because of the hard living and the you know, the characteristics of that industry, man, it's brutal. It's brutal. And so now, you know, you've got things like, honestly, my podcast that highlight the shifting trend in that industry.
Yeah.
And it is shifting big time, for lots of different reasons. But I know you're not still working in that world, but are you seeing that trend as well and championing it?
Yeah, of course. I mean, you know, I spent 22 years in the industry. The highest salary I got was $60,000, and that was, you know, working a 60-hour-a-week minimum. I didn't have health insurance. I never had health insurance. I didn't have anything set aside. Charleston is like an anomaly for the rest of the state. It's very expensive. It was always expensive, and I was always just getting by, and I felt like what I had made was like a massive sacrifice of my time, you know, to the industry, to the guests, to other people, and I didn't, you know, get a lot back in return.
Yeah.
I was kind of jaded. I was kind of pissed off. But at that time, it was what it was. I'm not sure what happened during COVID. They call it, you know, the Great Resignation. I call it the Great Awakening. I think when everybody was kind of trapped in their houses, not working, no distractions, you get this opportunity to completely either lose yourself right. or sit back and kind of reflect and say what's working for me, what's not. And we laid off 4 million people and 2.5 don't return. Like, there's a massive issue.
Wow.
And so, what do we do? And, I think we started to see that shift. Rates started to go up. You saw more places, more, incentives being offered, more like we really need to internally look at what does our culture look like?
Yeah.
Are we being hospitable not only to the guests, but like to our staff internally? Like, are we creating careers? Or are we creating jobs? Like, if all you're doing is creating a job, then you're never going to get longevity out of anybody. It's going to be a stepping stone. It's going to be a temporary position. And, at some point that employee is going to get to the age where they're like, there's no security here. Mm-hmm. And they're going to leave.
Yeah.
And
you're going to attract a certain type as well.
Yeah. I mean, you look at, where's all the alcohol and drug abuse, in the form of neighborhoods. It's like in low income areas. The hospitality industry is pretty low income.
Yeah.
So what are you going to get? If you feel hopeless financially, if you feel hopeless in any way, shape, or form, you're either going to rise out of it or you're going to turn to other things to blot it out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good way to put it. Well, thanks for that answer. I appreciate that, because that sheds a lot of light on the industry alone, but also more recent and how kind of some of these trends were, started. And I didn't really know that. I didn't think about it in the sense of COVID and the almost inevitability of either continuing to block out or increasing blocking out or reflecting. A lot of us reflect during that time, and it was like, oh my God.
Amazon acquired hundreds of thousands of people from the hospitality industry. I mean, in the droves. And it's not like, working in a hot warehouse sorting packages is sexy by any means, but they gave them $75 an hour and they gave them health insurance. They didn't have to do a lot to do better.
Yeah.
And they gave them normality, like, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
Most people in the industry never got a taste of that. Mm-hmm. And so the industry shut down. And then when it's opening back up and, the general public's been holed up in a cave for 2 years, where are they going? They're going out to eat. They're going out to drink. Yeah. So they slam into an industry that's running on a skeleton crew. And the industry's like, hey, we're open for business. Come back. But say goodbye to your holidays. Say goodbye to your kids in the afternoon. Say goodbye to your normality that you never got a taste of, ever. Come back. And they still haven't done it. Mm-hmm. So they attracted them with these normal things that you find in every other industry, a livable wage, incentives, 401k. Like, if you want people to stick around, you have to create a career for them.
Yeah. And it almost, correct me if I'm wrong, but it almost felt like prior to that, the incentive was, and this could be wrong, the party atmosphere. I mean, was that were some restaurants and some, establishments creating a culture like that as if it were appealing? I mean,
maybe, but you got this other class of professionally driven chef.
Sure.
And that guy, I know plenty of chefs that have built empires that have a pretty good salary, but they still don't have security in that.
Yeah.
There's zero equity.
Right.
So it's a lot of legacy, smoke and mirrors. Mm-hmm. I want to be a chef. I want to wear the coat. Well, what happens when your legs give out? What happens when the stress is so unbearable that you're thinking about putting a gun in your mouth and you need health insurance because you got a real problem in front of you? What happens then?
Wow. All right. Well, let's shift a little and go into some more positivity.
Yeah.
And let's go into Gigpro, man. Tell me, give me some of the conceptualization of that and then the inception.
I mean, I got sober in 2016. I had stepped out of like a head chef role into a prep cook position, and that was just to take the stress of the responsibility off and the hours off. Like I had to make time for recovery my first year. I had to go like all in and just go into the recovery incubator. Mm-hmm. And so what I noticed in that first year is that like, oh my God, I'm uncomfortable here. And I don't see sustainability and sobriety, like staying in the industry. And that was just personal, Yeah. And I think a lot of it was also like, I'm kind of over it. All I had was a high school diploma and 22 years in the kitchen. Like I was fucking terrified. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't like the permanence of running a place. So I was like, I'll start consulting, so I'll give you 3 months. I'll get systems in place. I'll either get you to revenue or whip this place back into shape, find my replacement, and then I'll get out of here. That was actually probably more work in the long run. Like you sign up for something like that, like you're working every day for 3 months. But it paid well enough. And I guess just knowing that like at the end of these 3 months, like I can get out of here. Yeah. But like I had to supplement my income because I could go a month or two without a job. So I started Airbnb in my room, and I'm broke at this point, So the last, my buddy John Kenny, that was literally at one of my watering holes that I've been banned from forever. Because he didn't want to watch me drink myself to death. And I was just, more or less bothering his customers. He had reached back out to me and he was like, Ben, I hear you're doing great. I'd love to have you come back. I'm building, a 300 square foot kitchen off the back. I want a chef driven dive bar menu. I was scared of getting back into, higher end dining. That's kind of what I always did. I knew like to get paid well there, you had to sell your soul. You're on call all the time. And so doing like a bar concept was appealing. It didn't feel as much pressure. So I came in there with him and then, had a kind of egoically agreed to do a grand opening, and so we're going to do it. We're going to be busy. Dishwasher calls out for a shift. So I do what you always do in that situation. I'm like, guys, we got to find somebody or we're screwed. You're completely immobilized without a dishwasher. Oh, and, so we all hit the phones. We all whip out our phones. We're all looking for that guy that's already at work on Friday night or is not going to come in to give up his Friday night. And all of a sudden I get a push notification from Airbnb. Someone's booked your room for the night. And I was like, I wish this guy had booked to wash these fucking dishes. And that was it. I mean, that was the light bulb moment that I had, like standing there at the dish pit with my phone in my hand.
Wow.
And it took me about 6 months, but like, I don't know. I think the beautiful thing about like, for me being an alcoholic and an addict, like, the two parts that, really dominate me is this obsessive mind that I've got and this compulsive body. Like, even if I don't want to do it, I'm going to talk myself into doing it. And once I do it, like, that's it.
Do it again.
Who knows when Ben's coming back, So, but when you get like a little bit of recovery in you, like you can use these like, deficiencies in a positive way and they become assets. So I had that light bulb moment and I could not get it out of my brain. And so I started obsessing over it. And then I started taking action over it, like engaging with it physically and not being able to put it down. And so like these things that, used to be like my self-destruction had started turning into these assets for me to do pretty amazing things. And, this guy that has no background in software whatsoever somehow like gets this MVP launched in Charleston that was a website at that time. Got a couple people to buy in and use it and find value in it. And, got a guy to leave a, $250,000 job as a senior programmer to give me nights and weekends, and another guy to leave, is selling honeycomb fuselages to Boeing to come on as like an operator.
Wow.
And I just believed in it so much. And I knew like something had to change. Like it's not sustainable to work 2 or 3 jobs to make ends meet. At some point it's going to break you, and it's also not sustainable for me as a chef to be on call and miss my daughter's birthday every time a dishwasher doesn't show up. So I wanted to solve those 2 problems and kind of level the playing field between demand and, value.
Yeah.
And so, 2008, we're throwing applications in the trash, and then fast forward to 2018, we're buying them.
Yeah.
Wow. And we had experienced this labor shortage for a decade, and we needed a solution. And so we got a little traction before the pandemic. And then, like I said, the pandemic hits, 4 million people are laid off. Half of them don't come back. Like they're going to need this everywhere. So while the world was asleep, me and the, senior programmer, we built a mobile app. We launched it here in Charleston in November. We were still kind of COVID-y. And then in March, the floodgates opened up. Then Charlotte started calling. Nashville started calling. And over the next 18 months, we expanded to 28 cities, 3 employees to 63 employees, and $0 to a lot of money.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And it just happened overnight. It felt like I was drinking from a fire hydrant. I spent the next 2.5 years on the road, and, the same thing happened. And it got to the point where I was like, I don't think this is good for my recovery. So, we had professionals in place, and I was just like, let me know when you need a chef. And, I kind of moved on to the next chapter.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's good stuff, man.
It's unbelievable stuff.
It's really unbelievable.
It's the magic that only happens like when you're willing to change your life.
Yeah. Yeah. I get it. Man, I could just sit and ruminate on that. That's just a great story, man. Congrats. Yeah. Idea, run with it, take what, almost killed you before and apply it in a different way. And, it makes you more unique than somebody else who might have had that idea. You fucking executed it.
I'm not saying I wouldn't have had that idea, drinking myself.
Oh, but death. You wouldn't.
I just wouldn't have done anything. I would have been on a bar stool telling everybody
totally
about my
idea.
idea.
A great idea.
And then pissed off when someone else had the balls to do it.
That took your idea. Yeah, exactly. Well, man, that's awesome. Congrats. So where is it now? I mean, I know you just gave me an update, but is somebody buying it or has somebody bought it? I mean, is it?
No, it's still cranking. I mean,
yeah.
It's still doing its thing. The problem is still, out there.
Yeah, of course.
People still need to work 2 to 3 jobs in certain areas to make ends meet, and still want the value and being able to work when they want, when they need the money, and getting a rest when they need the rest. And dishwashers and prep cooks and line cooks and servers are still calling out for shifts. So I don't know if
that problem hasn't gone away.
I don't know if people will ever stop needing value in it, having value in it. But I think it's probably here to stay.
Yeah, good, man. That's awesome. All right, so let's start to wrap up. But I do want to ask you, a shout out to our buddy Julie Montgomery for setting this up. She did share with me about your coaching platform company. Talk about it, man. I want to hear.
Yeah, so, I stepped out of Gigpro January 2023, like out of the day-to-day, and I hadn't like processed at all what happened, and someone suggested like just go unplug. Like you've been living, running a company across 4 different time zones, for 2.5 years, like, go somewhere and unplug. And I went out to Yosemite. There's no service out there, and it hit me, and it hit me so hard that I literally like dropped to my knees on this trail, about what had happened. I didn't have a second to breathe, to really process what was going on. It just happened so fast, But I'd entered this kind of really uncomfortable space where you would think you would be comfortable. I worked my whole life to not work, and now I don't have to, have the pressure of having to work, and I hate it. I'm just geared so high, like I got to do something. I'm not done producing, and you spent your whole life broke, and now you're not broke, and you're still scared.
What's the problem here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was just like, but you've got this story, you've got this story where, from a hospitality side, you've got this story from an entrepreneur side, you've got this story from a weight loss side. I've lost 100 pounds. Like,
oh, wow.
How do you get people to recovery that maybe don't know about recovery, don't want to have anything to do with recovery? And what does recovery look like? Recovery looks like everything. It's not just substance use. And, I feel like with my story, so alcoholically, I go out and I get every certification that I can. And that's from executive coaching to personal trainer to recovery coaching to everything. And I think the niche that, of the people that I want to work with, definitely in the hospitality industry.
Yeah.
We got a lot of type A personalities that aren't willing to admit that there's a problem, and damn it, I am one of them. That have a hard time reaching out and asking for help because it's all around you. Like, I knew that everybody was drinking around me. I just didn't see that, like, I'm the one that's going to drink myself to death. As a executive, it's a tough place to be in. Like, founder of a company is a lonely spot, especially when it's doing its thing and it's blowing up. Like, how do I manage that stress even if I'm in recovery? Like, maybe I need a little extra help, you know? And then, just anybody. It's anger management, it's grief, it's loss. The mechanics of recovery, I truly believe will work for everything. And that's because I've applied it to multiple facets of my life, and anything that I put through the gauntlet is completely revolutionized.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
How do I make that palatable to anybody? Whether it's alcohol, substances, or any other thing.
Yeah.
Spending.
Right. Oh, totally.
So that's what I'm passionate about today.
I love it. That really rings true with me. We haven't got to know each other. I've been in recovery for about 19 years. Had some slips here and there with various things, but have always lived kind of in that world when I needed it and when I didn't. So I gave up the things that almost killed me, and then some other things kind of crept in. But my point is, in doing it that way, it made me go back to what I needed. And so I would apply, like you just said, and for me, it was the 12-step model. I was very entrenched into the 12 steps, and man, we have these conversations all the time, and I know you know them, where they, I wish everybody would run through the steps one time.
Yeah.
And it was it's not about alcoholism. It's not about drug addiction. It's about life, and it's about dealing with life, and it is a roadmap on how to deal with adversity in all different shapes and forms. I had a guy say they wanted to advocate for it being taught in like elementary schools.
Yeah.
Like give kids that tool to run through that list each time, you know, something comes up or whatever, and see what happens. I fully agree.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. Well, congrats, man.
Yeah, thank
Ben
you so
Ellsworth,
much.
thank you for coming on, and thank you for sharing all your inside and the back and the lead up and the journey and the success and the struggles that came along with it, not just with substances, but just everyday life. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, brother. Thanks,
Yeah, man. Thank you.